All right, so there we go. Thank you all again so much for joining us, and thank you for your willingness to participate both in our chat and to allow us to record these materials so that we can then transmit this information to individuals who weren't able to participate. Today, I want to talk to you about a couple of our Kentucky Goes to College initiatives, Close the Deal and Kentucky College Application Campaign specifically. And we're also going to have a special guest speaker. Miss Shelley Lemaster is here, and we're going to talk about her role here in just a little bit. But we think it's great to have someone who actually is implementing these events at their particular school to come in and share some tips and tricks for the rest of us. All right, so Kentucky Goes to College. Overall, that is a series of initiatives in the Commonwealth that include Close the Deal, College Application Campaign, and Decision Day, which will happen in the spring semester. So this is an umbrella term that encompasses several different programs. Kentucky Goes to College, we have a website, kygoestocollege.com, and I'll show you a small demonstration of that website a little bit in the presentation. But we have tools to help you implement all of these different programs. One of the things I want to emphasize is you all do not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to implementing these programs. We have a lot of tools available, and I'll show you some of those tools as I demonstrate that website later in the presentation. We also, through our website, kygoestocollege.com, we have resources for students who are going through the college application and financial aid process. So tons of materials for both the counselor who is interested in implementing the program, but also for the students who are interested in participating in the program. And as I'll hit on several times throughout our conversation, preparing the students is a big component of these programs working successfully. Also, later I'll highlight that soon we are going to have some new FAFSA resources and potentially a FAFSA challenge for the Commonwealth as well. But right now, we're just looking at adding a FAFSA resource page that will link you to a lot of different virtual tools that you'll be able to use in your own schools. All right, so Close the Deal. So let me give you a little bit of background information, and go ahead and let me know in the comments as well. Has anybody participated in a Close the Deal before? So if so, if you can just let me know in the comments if you've participated, maybe give me a little bit of feedback while I give you a little bit of background info about Close the Deal. All right, so these were programs that began in 2008 in Louisville by then Mayor Jerry Abramson. And there were several different kind of reasons that these programs came to fruition. The goals of the programs were to create a college-going culture at Kentucky high schools with historically low college-going rates, to inspire students to explore opportunities that will further their education and training, whether it's a one-year certificate, a two-year associate's degree, or a four-year college degree, to help high school counselors more effectively advise students in the college application and enrollment processes, and to involve the community and local business leaders, as well as the state education professionals, in helping students set goals for the future. So in short, the objectives behind Close the Deal were to bring together the community, including college admissions reps, financial aid professionals, business leaders, and educators, to bring them all into one space and to help inspire students to explore their options and even solidify a plan for what they're going to do after graduation. The cool thing about Close the Deal, or one of the cool things about Close the Deal, is it is a program that's really broad. Whether the student is interested in some sort of post-secondary education, the military, or going directly into the workforce, you can bring in representatives that encompass all of those different areas. As we go through, and if you determine, yes, this seems like something I would really like to do at my school, I encourage you to go to that website, kygoestocollege.com, and you all will be having dreams tonight about me saying kygoestocollege.com, because so much of the information is on kygoestocollege.com. But if you do want to participate, please register. I'll show you how you can do that when I demo the website here in a few minutes. We have some free promotional items and things we can send to you if you do register in advance, and I'll hit on those a little bit later in the presentation. All right, so a couple of logistics I want to talk you through. Typically, a Close the Deal program is going to be traditionally targeted at seniors early in the fall semester. Now, that being said, what I want you to know is that Close the Deal is something that typically and historically has brought together a lot of people into one space. I really want to reiterate that this is an option, or there is an option for you to do a virtual close the deal as well, because I know a lot of school districts, specifically in my area, aren't really able to welcome a lot of visitors at this point. Even if you were, some of your students are probably virtual and the rest of them probably can't be confined to one area. So just know that these logistics can be transferred to an online environment, and we'll talk about that as we go along. So there's a couple of different formats for Close the Deal. Number one is table talk, and number two is mini conferences. In Close the Deals, what you're doing is you're bringing together the entire senior class. Usually these are going to be held in an auditorium, gymnasium, some space where everyone can congregate together, which I know sounds so foreign to all of us right now and feels like we're breaking the rules, because right now that probably would be breaking the rules. But usually we're getting all of the students in one space. This, and something that I'll talk about as we move forward into the next slide, this is an elevated event. So we encourage folks to encourage their students to dress in business casual and to invite important individuals from the community or perhaps the school district to participate as well. So typically both events, and you can see this in the second bullet point, a principal, superintendent, or notable guest will kind of be the keynote speaker who opens the event. So everyone's together, whether it's virtually or in person, and this one person comes in and addresses the whole group. They talk about the options for going to college or the military, or perhaps directly joining the workforce. They also can then maybe give a highlight of a couple of the people who are there at the event. After that point, usually a school counselor or the principal will stand and address the class, just talking about expectations. Remember, I said a moment ago, prepping the students is going to be so important. Hopefully, this will not be the first opportunity where they're hearing a little bit of information about kind of the expectations, but it is a good opportunity to reiterate what the event is, the tone of the event, and what sorts of things they might ask of those individuals they'll be meeting with. Now, here is where the programs differ. At a table talk, what you do, and I'll show you photos of this in just a moment, is you create a number of tables in rows. Okay, so within those rows, you represent either the business community, the admissions community, or the financial aid or military. So 3 to 4 different rows that you will be cycling students through. Let me go ahead and show you a picture so that makes more sense. If you look at the bottom 2 photos, you can see all these white tables are all lined out in these different rows. What's happening is students then are cycling through the different rows to meet with all of those different individuals, whether it's the financial aid professional, the admissions professional, somebody in the workforce, or somebody in the military, depending how many different categories it is that you're working with. Now, in terms of that event, there's going to be some pros and cons, and we'll talk about those in just a second. Largely right now, obviously having that volume of students in one space is going to be something that's going to be a little bit challenging, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. Typically, the table talk, you will do 3 20-minute rotations. So that's where you get the opportunity to hear from all 3 of those different categories. And students, regardless of their plan, they usually meet with all different categories. So they can ask questions, whether they're 100% certain or not, of people from the business world, from the college world, and from the military, or perhaps specifically the financial aid world. Mini conferences are a little bit different, okay? So rather than students being rotating between larger group or between tables in a larger group setting, students are broken into smaller groups and they rotate between a few 20 to 30-minute sessions. Now, here is where they're going to differ a little bit. A mini conference, rather than putting everybody in one space like you see in those bottom 2 images, you're going to be coordinating different spaces within your own building. So the library, the cafeteria, a couple of classrooms, a lecture hall, anything like that can become part of the mini conference setup. So keep in mind, if we're concerned, and we all are concerned with social distancing and spreading people out, if you still want to implement a close the deal, the mini conference may actually be a little bit more feasible, just because students can go in smaller groups, they can spread out within the classrooms, and you can rotate more sessions. In terms of some pros and cons to the 2 different events, and some things that I want you all to think about specifically, table talks will require more volunteers. So If you have to cycle through all of these different tables, pretty much every one of these tables represents a volunteer who has to be there to answer questions. The more students you have in your senior class, the more you're going to be cycling students through. So keep in mind, as you look at those tables and the number of tables you see, each one of those has a volunteer. That means coordinating more volunteers, bringing more people to your campus, which right now we know is a big concern. I want you to see as well in that table talk format, you can see this in the bottom left photo. There also typically is a college fair that will work alongside that event. So keep in mind that that's another opportunity for volunteers or to have volunteers in your campus, which generally would be a wonderful opportunity, but right now we know that's a big concern. In terms of if you go with the mini conference setup instead of table talks, generally it's fewer volunteers, so that's a big pro. So I may have one person from the business world, one person from college admissions, one from financial aid, one from one that may be a recent college grad, one from the military. And you can be a little bit more flexible and include more content areas with the mini conference setup. Also, like I said, in terms of social distancing, remember the mini conference setup may give you the opportunity to spread those students out a little bit. And you may or may not include a college fair in that mini conference kind of setup. Here, just a few photos. I highlighted the bottom ones a little bit. Top right corner, you can see one of our outreach counselors, Dr. Candace Johnson. She's sitting with a group of students and she's working with them in that table talk session. You can see that here in the first image, we have the college fair portion, which typically is going to be either right before or right after either the table talk or the conference breakout sessions. All right, so tips and best practices. Then I'm going to open it up for some questions, and then we're going to switch over to our college application campaign. In terms of tips and best practices, one of the biggest things, especially right now in a pandemic, is going to be getting that administration buy-in. I know a lot of districts right now, their hands are pretty well tied in terms of who they can and cannot bring in the building. So for this year, especially if this is the first year you want to implement this program, it may be easier for you to get buy-in if you propose a virtual event. If you go with the mini conferences that we talked about down here, you could bring everyone together. If your school utilizes Zoom, you could bring them together in one Zoom room, and then breakout sessions would serve as those mini conferences or those table talk sessions where people could be divided out. For both of these events, but specifically if you do close the deal in the table talk format, you want to line up volunteers and get guest speakers as early as possible. Remember, the number of volunteers depends on the format. So if I do table talks, I need a lot more volunteers than if I do a mini conference type session. A couple of ideas for who to bring. Business and community leaders, so those individuals who may be important in your community or who may represent local businesses or industries that typically may hire a lot of right out of high school students. College admissions individuals. Now, especially right now, they may be eager to get in school. So if you are able to host this event and you are able to safely host visitors, that may be a good opportunity to bring them into your building. Financial aid reps, this can include the KIA outreach staff. So me and the other 12 or 13 of us throughout the Commonwealth who do this work. You can reach out on any of us if you want any help implementing or actually participating in the events. But also think about the financial aid staff at the colleges closest to you. So the community college, if you have a 4-year public or private school or a couple of those near you, go ahead and engage them as well. Remember, this is not necessarily a recruitment event with the exception of that college fair portion. So if they are dead set on recruiting, if you can implement the college fair portion, that's a great opportunity for them to recruit. Otherwise, remember, these individuals from colleges are not promoting their specific college. What they're actually doing is giving general advice based on their experience. Also, like you can see in those images, we want you to decorate the event, make it feel exciting and feel special. Just elevate the gym space or whatever space it is you're using to make it feel like something that's a little bit more of a treat. I mentioned that you may want to encourage students to wear business casual. They don't have to wear a suit or a shirt and tie or that kind of thing, but business casual is a great way to sort of separate it from a typical school day. I've also seen that a lot of schools will incorporate a meal of some sort, and to make it a little more special, you could ask your cafeteria folks if they'll make a special meal, more of a catered style meal that's different than a meal they would typically serve. I've seen people solicit local businesses and restaurants for donations, or maybe to get some deals on some food they could purchase for the event. And I've also seen schools utilize their family and consumer science programs or home economics programs in those students, because some of them will even have fundraisers to help them with some projects they're working on, so you can get catering through those organizations. So there's a lot of different opportunities for you to cut costs, but also to make the event feel exciting and special. Like I've mentioned, and like I'll continue to mention throughout, please prepare students prior to this event so they understand what it is. Tell them what the event is, why you're doing it. So explain to them that this is an opportunity to bring a lot of people who you may not otherwise have access to without calling or emailing and waiting for a response. It's an opportunity to bring them all in one space. We want to remind students how to interact with volunteers, that these are professionals who will likely be, or who may be crossing paths with them very soon, and give them sample questions they may want to ask. I think this one is especially important, and I think could be a great discussion among seniors, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know until we don't know it. So providing them some sort of questions or topics or things to explore a little bit further may be a great opportunity for you all to set them up for success once they're actually in front of those professionals. Lastly, I already mentioned soliciting local businesses for donations, but utilize those resources I'll show you on Kentucky Goes to College in just a few moments. So close the deal. Any questions? You can either raise your hand, you can add them to the chat, whatever works best for you. I'm going to hold it open for just a second. Also, if anyone has any experiences with Close the Deal they'd like to talk about, please feel free. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Feel free to jump in if you do have any or anything that you want to add. We can always go back to that part of the conversation. All right, so what is the American College Application Campaign? So we talked about Kentucky College Application Campaign, but just know that the College Application Campaign in our state is part of a larger program. Oh, I do see a comment coming through. I think we're going to try a week-long Close the Deal due to crowd limiting, one major rep each day. That is such a good way for you to be able to bring in different types of reps from each field, but minimize the exposure and minimize perhaps people being in smaller spaces. So I think that's a great way to do it. So American College Application Campaign, it began with a few different tenets that I want to tell you all about. That includes focusing on first generation students who might not have considered applying to college otherwise. And the thought is that some folks, some of our seniors may not have those nudges at home that some others do. So this is a way for those seniors during the school day to get the help and support that they may need. Typically, college application campaign events are going to be scheduled for the fall in October or November, so that students who are interested in applying for a lot of those institutional level scholarships have the opportunity to apply for them. And remember, in order to apply for those, a lot of students actually have to be admitted before they can apply for those institutional level scholarships. It takes place during the school day. So remember, accessibility and access is a component of this program. So in order to help those students who may not have that help at home and who may have additional challenges like transportation, typically this event is going to be held during the school day. Also, American College Application Campaign requires collaboration between the K through 12 and post-secondary education world. The idea here is to bring together those professionals who work with college applications day in and day out, and to let them disseminate all their expertise that they've gotten from looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of college applications. So bring them in during a low, no-cost event that students can come to typically during the school day. Specifically for Kentucky, it is the 10th year for the program in our Commonwealth. And the focus, like we said, it's about helping seniors complete admissions applications in a very practical way. What I mean by that, some of you may already implement some key programs like Getting In or a college admissions presentations that give a lot of the philosophy and the background and why college admissions matters and why we go to college. I separate this event in my own head because it's a very practical event. We're actually sitting down with students at a computer lab or with a laptop and helping them work through the different problems they may be having as they complete college applications. I will tell you, this program, if you're interested in implementing any of the Kentucky Goes to College, it's one of the cheapest and easiest. And just like Close the Deal, you can scale this program up or down depending on the size of your school, the resources, and the time that's available to you. Schools, we do ask that you register online at KY Goes to College. I'll talk about the swag you can get if you do register as well, but it's very helpful to us. And you can go online to that website and you can do that online toolkit or take a look at that, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes to help you implement this program if you're not quite sure where to start. All right, a couple of logistical pieces I want to talk about. Number one, timing is flexible. Consider whether or not you plan to do a Close the Deal and think about how those two may work together. Do you do college applications for a week and then the week culminates in a Close the Deal event? I saw Rebecca Dames mentioned in the comments, they're doing a week-long Close the Deal, so could you incorporate some college application work into that week when you may already be bringing visitors to your campus? I will say the 2021-2022 FAFSA will open up on October 1st. This brings up the question of should college apps be done before or after, and the answer is really it's appropriate for either one. There's no right or wrong answer, but the sooner the student applies, the sooner they are on the radar for the college they're looking at, and the sooner they're putting themselves in for that admissions decision, which can be so important when it's time to apply for scholarships. The key element here is lab space or some sort of either Wi-Fi accessibility or laptops where students can complete this during the school day. When we went back, or if we go back and we talked about kind of some of the basics and the tenets, remember this is to help create accessibility for students who may not have the help at home. They may also, like I said, have transportation, or they may even have access issues with internet or devices. So try to have some sort of space. If you do have a computer lab where you can spread out, where you could disinfect the computers in between students using them. And this may actually require a longer event than you typically would have to have fewer students in at any particular time. All right, couple tips for implementation, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shelley Lemaster, who's going to talk to you all a little bit about some of the kind of practical elements of her implementing this event at her own school. Like I said, some of the materials we will provide for you if you register online, and one of those is a KY Goes to College folder. Here in a couple slides, let me get to it so I can show you. It's this black folder right here. Typically it's been purple, this year it's black, but this is one of the examples of the resources we provide for you. So what you can do ahead of time in order to prepare for this event, you can create folders to help students gather that info in advance. You can include the transcript if your school's able to print and provide transcripts. You can have parchment set up in advance so that right after students complete the applications, they can log into parchment and go ahead and send those transcripts. You can meet with seniors in advance to discuss college research, match versus fit, essays, letters of recommendations, all those sorts of different things that once again set the tone and help them to understand what these events are truly for. One of the biggest things that you can prepare your students so they don't feel blindsided is to prepare them by letting them know that some applications have cost and letting them know what their options are. So in this case, fee waivers, or some schools, if you invite particular colleges to an application event, they may actually waive their application fee for the duration of that event. So ask around, see what's available, and always remember to reiterate those application fees are available if students have some issue. All right, volunteer coordination, the more the merrier. Anytime other than a pandemic. So typically speaking, we want more volunteers from different types of institutions, from community colleges, from private and public universities and colleges. Remember, this is not an event that they're actively recruiting at. So if I'm representing a particular college or university, I'm providing general information based on my expertise, based on those applications I've seen. It's not about me recruiting or pushing you toward a particular application. You can also enlist teachers and other school personnel. English teachers are such a great resource for this as we get into essays and other short answer options. A college or career coach, if you have one of those at your school, as many people as who could be helpful as possible. Take advantage of student leaders and early birds. So who are those students who have already applied? The ones who are already beating down your door to send a transcript, ask them if they can come and be mentors and help provide advice based on their own experience. College admissions personnel, I hit on them earlier. They are great to ask, but ask early because their hands may be a bit tight with travel this year, but also remember that their schedules book up pretty quickly. All right, before I hit best practices, I want to give you all a break from hearing me, and I'm going to open it up to Miss Shelley Lemaster from Boyd County High School. She's going to share some really practical and really great tips and tricks and a couple of things that she does to make these events a success for her. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Shelley, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Again, as he said, I'm Shelley Lemaster, and this is my 23rd year in education, my 8th year as a school counselor, and my 2nd year as a college and career counselor. At the end of the 18-19 school year, our school and district decided we wanted a counselor dedicated to college and career readiness, and I jumped at the chance to do that. This would be my 8th year with the college application campaign. So last year, as a new college and career counselor, I decided, since this was now my baby, I wanted to do things differently. The first years that I participated with this, I was honestly a little frustrated. I didn't think we did a very good job executing it, and students would come in not knowing basic information, their social security number. Some of them moved so much they didn't know their address. A lot of them had forgotten their computer login information. So I felt like I spent a lot of my time at a computer just helping them gather the information they needed instead of advising them. And it wasn't as rewarding as it could have been. We also had a lot of trouble with some of the online college applications. A lot of them were kind of glitchy, and we couldn't tell if they actually submitted properly. So I thought ahead. I thought about all these things that I saw as barriers, and I tried to plan ways to improve on those things. And that's kind of what I'm going to share with you today. We've made improvements little by little every year, and last year we got a lot of really good feedback, and we also won the School of Excellence Award, the only school in Kentucky to do that. So I feel like we made a lot of progress last year. And a lot of what I'm going to tell you is just to kind of reinforce what Chase has already said. So the way we typically do it, our principal is adamant that we minimize classroom interruptions. So we pull our seniors to the Library Media Center during their English classes. So that's our routine. So we have a limited amount of time, and we give the students they can either sit at a desktop in the library or they can get a Chromebook. So the first thing I did last year was attend one of these meetings. And then I immediately, after the meeting, went to all the websites that you've been told about today and went through all of the resources and decided what I wanted to use and what I didn't. And I would encourage you to do that. There are a lot of really good resources for you to use that will save you a lot of time. Set your date early and communicate it. I usually sit down with my KIA admissions counselor, my KIA counselor, at the end of every school year, and we plan all of our dates for the next school year. My counselor is Amy Marvin. She's wonderful. She makes my job very easy. But once I get those dates set with her, I immediately send out a save the date to anybody I want involved in this project. I get it on the school calendar, and I tell everybody that that's a sacred date, and I make sure everybody knows what it is and that I don't want it messed with. Probably one of the best things you can do is get as many admissions counselors and recruiters there that you can. They are the most valuable resource that you could have, and it will make things much go much more smoothly for you if you do that. Most of them will waive application fees that day if they're there. Who better to advise students on college admissions than these recruiters? If they need additional information from students, they can usually get it from us that day. They can or give us a list of things that they need. And if there are problems with the application, they can fix it usually, or they know who to call to fix it. So I would highly recommend that you get as many of your admissions recruiters there as you can. And invite anybody else that you think could help you and make this day go more smoothly. I mentioned that kids had forgotten their computer logins. So I had the lady in our building that takes care of all that there all day at a computer. So if a student didn't remember, they went straight to her and she helped with that. I had our registrar there so that he could help with transcripts and parchment. We had already set up parchment accounts, but again, a lot of students had forgotten usernames and passwords. He had saved those, and I had him there to help kids with parchment. All of the other counselors in our building were there. We invited college coaches. And on a side note, I noticed we have several college coaches on here today. If you are a counselor at a school, you want to talk to somebody about getting a college coach, it is tremendously valuable. I have one of the best, I would argue, and it's super helpful. And we had a couple of regular subs that hadn't gotten teaching jobs yet, so they subbed in the building a lot, and I knew they'd be really good with advising kids. So I asked my principal if we could hire a couple of extra subs for college application campaign day, and they allowed me to do that, and those people came in and helped advise students. And again, have your KIA person there. I can't say that enough. Have your KIA counselor there to help with FAFSA and check keys money and all of those things. Like you've been told already, prepare your students in advance. About a week prior to the event, I sent all the information out to the senior English teachers, and asked them to prepare the kids. Explain what we were going to be doing and what kinds of information they might need to know or things they might need to bring with them. So that also, I have a college application day checklist that I'll share with you in just a minute. And I shared that with the English teachers so they could go over some of those things with the students beforehand. I also, when I had my rough draft of the college application check sheet, I sent it to all of the admissions recruiters that had confirmed that they would be attending. And I asked them if there was anything I needed to add. And they did give me lots of ideas and information that I hadn't thought about, and allowed me to add that to my checklist for the students. And I'll share that in just a minute. Communicate with all of your school staff and use them as a resource. So I sent out an email a few weeks prior to the event explaining what it is and why we were doing it and how it fit into our ILP advising program. And I asked the teachers on college day to take some time with each of their classes and talk about their own college admissions experiences. And I gave them a list of potential questions to ask the students or to discuss with students, like why had they chosen the college that they did, and would they do anything differently? So I gave them a lot of discussion questions and asked them to share those. And I also sent out some of those resources from the website, activities that could be done with students. I sent those links to those to the teachers to use as well. I invited everybody to come, district administrators, all the teachers in the building, asked them to stop by, our building administrators. I asked all of them to stop in and say hello, and a lot of them did. We had a school-wide college shirt day on that day, and I had got approval for our teachers, a jeans day for teachers to get them kind of excited about the day. And I offered prizes throughout the day to students who participated. So we would just randomly pick students who had their college gear on, and we would give them prizes. I save all of the gear that I get from recruiters for days like that when I can to use them as prizes, and also went out and bought a few other things, but I didn't spend a whole lot of money. As you've already been told, and I can't express how important it is to have everything ready for the students beforehand. I took the folders that have been discussed already, and I put the kids' names on them beforehand. They had their own personal folder. And then I divided them by English class so that they were ready to go when the students came in, and I had everything in those folders that they would need to complete an application. It had a copy of their transcript. It had the checklist that I told you that I'll share in just a minute. Anything they would need. So anybody that was helping them also would have that information in front of them. I had someone checking students out. So before they could leave, they had to go to this person, show them that they had applied, prove that they had taken the survey that they were required to take, and then they got a I applied sticker and some candy that I had purchased. Have stations set up so you can multitask. I had my Kia person in one part of the room. I had my college recruiters set up in another part. So there was a station where kids knew where to go to get help if they needed it. And one thing I forgot to do was take pictures. Take lots of pictures. Luckily, my superintendent stopped in and took a lot of good pictures, but take pictures, take time to enjoy the day with your students, and share all of that with the community and with parents on social media. So I'm going to share the checklist with you. Chase, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So here was the checklist that I sent out to English teachers prior to share with students, and I also had a copy of this in each of their folders. And this is also a lot of the feedback that I got from our admissions recruiters. So it told them exactly step by step what to do. Get a Chromebook and sit where you're comfortable. We want you to complete at least one application today, but apply anywhere that you're interested, even if you don't have time today. If you're not sure, we have representatives from, and we had 5 different schools there this year. I told them what was in their folder in a transcript. We created a special transcript just for this day that included their social security number. We don't normally have that on transcripts, and I know that might be a little controversial, but we just made sure they knew to be careful with those transcripts. I told them about waiving application fees, and if they qualified for free or reduced lunch, to see one of us, and we could help them if it was a school that wasn't in attendance to waive the application fees. But anyway, I went through here. This information is a lot of what the recruiters gave me to make sure their social security numbers and addresses are correct, use their legal given name, not a nickname, those kinds of things. Then go to parchment, if time permits, do these certain things. So we had a list of things checked for them to do. And yes, I'm going to actually share the link to this with you in the chat as soon as I finish. And I'll also put my email on there if any of you want to contact me with questions or any additional information. I just saw that question in the chat. So anyway, this is what we did. It worked very well. There are things that I definitely want to improve even further when we do this again. But basically just think of the things that you think could be barriers and figure out a way to make them go a little better. And that's all I have.
All right, Shelley, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking this time for 2 weeks in a row and sharing with us, because the info from us is one thing, but to actually see the info from somebody who is implementing this program, doing it and working to improve this programming, I think is so incredibly helpful. So thank you, Shelley. We really appreciate you, and congratulations on your School of Excellence win.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I do want to touch on for a moment before I show you the website hosting a virtual event. You can organize breakout rooms with college admissions counselors moderating. If you're concerned about having a certain number of people at any given time, you can also request short videos from admissions counselors with admissions application tips that provide student links to references. So one of the things to think about here is that you could ask a lot of different schools, maybe even schools that you typically wouldn't be able to have come to your high school in order for you to get information from them. Remember, this is not a recruitment event unless you incorporate that college fair portion. Okay, so this is something that they're giving general advice based on their experience, not necessarily for their particular college or university. So if that's the case, if they're cool with that, they can send you videos and you can incorporate those as well. Encourage students to take advantage of virtual tours so that they can then ask questions if those admissions counselors are going to be a part of the event. You can use social media to promote your events and create a virtual brag board to highlight college acceptance. So, some sort of graphic that you can use to represent the different colleges and universities that students have been admitted to. You could also compile photos of your students who have admissions letters, those kinds of things that let them really take pride in the fact they've already applied. Here are some of the things, different events we've collected. You can see here, this is Morty. He is our mascot. Morty kind of books up quickly and may not be traveling quite as much during a pandemic, but you can reach out if you ever have any questions about booking him. You can see here, we have a lot of different ways where people have either decorated doors or are promoting different colleges where students may have applied to or where they may typically apply to. And you can see down here, we have students working in the actual lab space. So that's one of the most important things here is that we get them in front of a computer where they can answer these questions and get help from professionals. So I'm going to open the participants tab. Does anyone have any questions or anything to add about college application campaign? You can raise your hand. You can make a note in the chat. See any questions? All right, one thing I do want to mention. Oh, Ashley.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
I don't really know if it's a question or a clarification. I don't really know. So we're still trying to figure out our college application campaign,
Yeah.
but currently I'm creating a virtual college fair website almost.
Uh-huh.
Like I've asked different colleges to send in videos from their admissions counselors that kind of give a brief admissions overview. And then along with that, they send in specific links. So, like one link that says apply now, then the contact information for that admissions counselor, their majors, the majors offered, and then a link to any preview dates that they have, and
Yes.
then any other specific links that they feel are important for the students to know about. Now, I guess my question is what else should we do on top of doing that website?
Yeah, so that website sounds great in terms of compiling information and bringing it all to one place. If you can incorporate some sort of actual workshop, albeit virtually, and I see some comments about how will this work, we've given Chromebooks to our students, college reps can't come. You can even have Zoom rooms or Teams or Meets or whatever program you use where students can log in. They can share their screen and they can ask questions of those professionals. So that's something to consider as well if you want to throw in that piece, because that's really what the college application campaign is about, is that application piece and getting that practical support. Is that helpful, Ashley?
Yep, that'll
Okay,
work.
perfect.
That is
Hopefully
great.
I
Thank
answered
you.
your question there. And I see
Yep.
another response in the comments. I've requested videos or virtual sessions from local colleges, made them available in certain rooms for student viewing. This helped a lot, might be a first step. I love that advice. And Laura, you're absolutely right. We will probably, at least this year, have to transition all of these to a virtual event. So I like this idea of compiling different resources and creating some sort of online way for students to check them out. But also if you can do something with virtual support so they can fill out the applications as well, I think that would be really, really helpful. All right, thank you all. A couple of resources really quickly, and then I'm going to show you this website. There are some new planning calendars, implementation guides. We, of course, at Kia, our outreach team is a resource to you as well. And then that KY Goes to College website. So that's what I want to show you right now. So hang tight. All right, so I've talked, I know, ad nauseum about this website, but the reason for that is because this website has so much information. Depending on which of the campaigns you're interested in, what you can do is you can either click the campaign down here. You can also go up here and navigate in this bar, select the event, and then select whether you're a counselor or whether you're a student. Remember, earlier I mentioned we have resources available to both. So let's see, if I was doing a close the deal and I'm the counselor, I would click there. Here we have all of the different resources, including an exit checklist, an agenda, an implementation guide, a planning calendar template, and webinar information if you want additional training. Also, I want to show you, we have the student portion of the website where we have some different resources available depending on the campaign. So here's what's available for students for college application campaign. So all these different resources are different things that we can link students to help prepare them for the event. I want to point out just a couple more things on this website before I open it up for more questions toward the end. We also have some vlogger videos, so some really practical tips and tricks from both high school students who are applying to college and current college students who are navigating this world. We also have several webinars you can register for. I will be hosting one tomorrow, actually, at noon Eastern Standard Time. It's a FAFSA frenzy, so a Q&A with some info about the FAFSA, so you can register for those as well. Last thing I do want to show you is if you participate, and I'll mention this in a moment, we do ask that you provide us a little bit of feedback. So if you click on, if you hover over the campaign, you select which one, close the deal or college application. You can click on that survey link and you can find whether you're the site coordinator, so the counselor, or the student. Click on that and it will link you to a survey. We need, in order to provide you with some data, we need about 50% or more of your students who have participated in the event to provide us feedback in the form of those surveys. So if you're hoping to get some feedback about your event, we need about half the students to complete that. All the data collection is done via that online survey now, so we think that is quicker and easier, so we do it via those links. We ask if you complete an event that you complete it by December the 13th. We have 2019. I suspect it will be 2020 for this year, but you complete them by that December date to be entered for a drawing for a gift card. All right, before I get into opening it back up, I do want to mention one other thing. If everyone who is participating could put your name and your email address in the chat, I want to make sure that you all can get your ELA credit. So your first and last name and then your email address, that would be very helpful in making sure that everyone gets the credit for being here. And I do want to ask as well, does anyone have any questions about these programs? It could be about college application campaign. It could be about close the deal. You can either raise your hand or you're welcome to add that in the chat. All right, thank you all for sending those. Kind of couple thoughts to leave you on. Do what works best for your school and your students. These are customizable, they're scalable, so you can make them as large or as small. You can work with a variety of budgets, different spaces. You could be in person, you could be virtual. Make these work for you. Utilize social media. We have some tags, hashtag KY goes to college, hashtag I applied KY, and hashtag Y apply. Make it fun and special, involve the whole school, and don't hesitate to utilize those KY Goes to College resources, okay? So we have so many of them because we want you to use them, so be sure to check those out. Otherwise, I don't see any hands up for any questions, comments, concerns. If you have not put your first and last name and email in the chat, please do so I can make sure you get that credit. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us, and be on the lookout for plenty more information coming from Kia. Thank you all.